I hope you're having a good day today. We are towards the end of Genesis chapter 3 today. Our hymn today is a hymn called How Awesome Is Thy Chastening Rod.
How awesome is thy chastening rod, thy blessed children say. The great, the wise, the jealous God, how holy is his way. How meditate his works of old, who reigns in heaven above. How hear his ancient wonders told, and learn to trust his love.
An Isaac Watts hymn. And the song is more pertinent to the Exodus, but still, as we think about the Lord's chastening rod, might think about how it applies to where we are going to be reading. Let's look at the verses. The sons of pious Jacob seemed abandoned to their foes, but his almighty arm redeemed the nation that he chose. From slavish chains he set them free, they follow where he calls. He bade them venture through the deep, and made thy waves their walls. The waters saw thee, mighty God, the waters saw thee come. Backward they fled, and frightened stood to make thine armies room. Strange was the journey through the sea, thy footsteps, Lord, unknown. Terrors attend the wondrous way that brings the mercies down. Israel, his people, and his sheep must follow where he calls. He bids them venture through the deep, and makes the waves their walls. He gave them water from the rock, and safe by Moses' hand, through a dry desert led his flock home to the promised land. How awesome is thy chastening rod. In Genesis chapter 3 at verse 17, then to Adam he said, because you have heeded the voice of your wife, and have eaten from the tree of which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat of it, cursed is the ground for your sake. In toil you shall eat it all the days of your life, but thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you. You shall eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground, for out of it you are taken. For dust you are, and to dust you shall return. And Adam called his wife's name Eve, because she was the mother of all living. Also for Adam and his wife the Lord God made tunics of skin and clothed them. Then the Lord God said, behold, the man has become like one of us, to know good and evil. And now, lest he put out his hand and take also of the tree of life, and eat and live forever. Therefore the Lord God sent him out of the garden of Eden to till the ground from which he was taken. So he drove out the man, and he placed cherubim at the east of the garden, and a flaming sword which turned every way to guard the way of the tree of life. There's different things we could think about. You might think about the familial roles. You might think about how the familial roles are going to change in heaven. You might also, and what I'm referring to is what he tells Eve, your desire shall be for your husband, there in verse 16. You might think about how the work was going to change. For Adam, cursed is the ground for your sake. Might consider that as well. This is also, by the way, when the Lord is talking to the devil, this is the prophesied Messiah between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel, that the devil would be overcome. So our passage now, though, our highlighted portion that we're going to be considering, therefore the Lord sent him out of the garden to till the ground from which he was taken. And what he said there in that same reading, he says, till you return to the ground. In the sweat of your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken. For dust you are, and to dust you shall return. He sends him out of the garden to till the ground from which he was taken. And I was thinking about Adam's work. And I think there's something as he was working to till the ground from which he was taken. And as he worked, it serves as a reminder of life and death. I came from the ground, and I'm going back to the ground because of sin. I came from the ground, but I'm going back to it. I rose from the dust, and I'm returning to the dust because of sin. So he drove out the man. That word there for drove, that's a pretty strong word. Verse 23 says he sent him out, but verse 24 says he drove out the man. I would encourage you to look up that word. That's pretty strong. And so we think about God's chastening rod. It made me think about what was said to Saul of Tarsus. You know, as the light shone and as he heard the voice, Saul, Saul. What did he say? It is hard for you to kick against the goads. How awesome is thy chastening rod. And the Lord drove out Adam and Eve. Drove them out. He placed cherubim at the east of the Garden of Eden. You know, I was thinking about that phrase as well. I think sometimes we think about the garden and we think, well, some people take the view the whole thing's a story. It's not a story. Now, are there things that are above our pay grade that we may not understand? Probably so. Is it a magic tree? This is how the Lord has made things. But here's my point. It was very real. The Lord really did make it this way. And I think that idea there in verse 24, don't focus on the cherubim. It's hard not to. But how it's described. He placed cherubim at the east of the Garden of Eden. That phrase. If it's just a metaphor, if it's just a story, why would you include the detail at the east of the Garden of Eden? Why would you include that detail? Why not just say, he placed cherubim at the gate? Why not just say that? He placed the cherubim at the entrance into the garden. Why would you specifically say, he placed them at the east of the garden? I think the very fact that it is phrased that way shows this was a real place. You might recall in the account of Sodom and Gomorrah, actually before that, when Lot and Abraham separate, and Lot lifted his eyes when Abraham said, choose wherever you want to go. Lot lifted his eyes and it was well watered everywhere, just like the garden of the Lord. The cherubim was placed there. You might also think about why the cherubim was placed, because no one's getting in without the Lord say so. And that, of course, brings us up to the end of Revelation, and the tree of life is reintroduced. But here it's a real place. And the Lord's not letting anyone in without a say-so. There at the east side, the cherubim rests. There with the sword, a flaming sword which turned every way to guard the way to the tree of life. Interesting account, needless to say. Appreciate you. Hope you have a good day. Join us tomorrow for another portion of our daily praise.